Hi, Leos, and welcome to your February 2023 General Tarot Forecast. This is Sky coming on to talk to you about your month ahead of February. I hope you're all having a wonderful month ahead. I am really looking forward to reading for you as we have the Sun and Pluto preparing to move onto your axis in your opposite sign of Aquarius. As we are doing this reading, the Sun is already in Aquarius and Pluto will move next month into Aquarius. So we have a total life shift, a total shift in gravity, a total likely new life coming on for the sign of Leo. And I want to talk about, in this reading, preparing for that and processing some of the complex emotions that are probably coming in right about now. As usual, Leos, I will be doing intuitive messages, followed by a week-to-week tarot forecast and an extended reading linked below on Patreon. So yes, along those previous lines, there are new emotions, okay? You might feel very new ways about old problems. You might also realize that some problems that you were having are non-issues and basically masquerading or kind of being a vassal of bigger problems. So this is an important month to really get to the core of things and to understand the root of why certain chaotic experiences happened. So, for example, I don't know, say that you have some weird thing that's off in your life, like you feel like, I don't know, my business or my career is just like not quite right. I can't figure out what's wrong with it. Is there something that's much deeper than that's off? Like the price you're paying psychologically to upkeep that space at all, or perhaps the identity concerns of being that type of proprietor or being that type of person. It's just kind of a hypothetical example where I find that so many people with the North Node in Taurus that we've had over this last year and a half have perhaps created a few problems for themselves just to, at a deeper level, signal that a bigger thing is off. So keep an eye out for this in February because it gets really visible now. This thing where people are like having these small things that are so chaotic but are then representative of a much bigger issue in their lives. That is a big area to sort of self-diagnose on. And this is not anything that complicated. This is actually very simple stuff. And it's really a matter of like, what am I doing with my time? What is my space being filled by? Do I stand behind the other people in this equation? Do I like the momentum that's being set by these grander things that I'm contributing to in my life right now? Try to, this month, group and categorize some of your involvements. Aquarius season is really nice for logic. It's nice for putting things into containers. It's nice for grouping, and it's a sign of hierarchy. Okay, and so is the sign of Leo. This axis is about hierarchy. So you can solve a lot here in February just by finding a new hierarchy of priorities and by understanding just what is what. So maybe some organization, maybe some linking. So if you have things that are like merging together in your life, what are all of the different aspects of these, I suppose, entities in your life, whether this is business, whether this is relationships, and what recipe is all of that coming together creating? This is knowledge that we have access to right now very easily if we want. And a lot of your month, as I'm seeing your cards as well, has to do with that type of consideration. So if you're a particularly spiritually evolved Leo, you've probably been having this for like a few years now, and it's coming to a climax, in which case those Leos are probably going to be like, oh my gosh, I'm just ready to step into action. I don't want to keep, planning and strategizing and keeping all this stuff in the mind. But you might have to for another month or two, and then there's going to come a period of time, which is still quite a ways off. For some Leos as early as May of this year, but for Leos who are lagging a little bit, like all of 2023 can be a planning and strategy year. But there's going to come a time later in Dragon where we really need to be executing and being like in sacred and fulfilling action. So it's easy, like while we're in this more comfortable space of 2023, to be like, I'm so tired of like these boring little minute things that I have to get into order, and I want the real stuff. Well, these boring little minute things that we're having to get in order are what decide whether or not the real stuff, quote unquote, becomes a blessing or an albatross. Okay. So this is kind of the main dynamic I feel for Leo and for most of the signs actually this month. But Leo being at least the second most activated sign, with the sun being in Aquarius and then Pluto about to move into Aquarius. What I will say, and this might kind of help you in your own processing process, is that try to not get stifled by the long-running past momentums. We are in one of the rare and few but far between times of being able to have a totally new perception of self, a totally new backdrop, okay? When Pluto changes signs, right, that can be once in a 20 to 40 year opportunity to change everything, okay? And that's channeling through your axis. So that pressure and that momentum and that gravitation is a lot for many Leos to process, and to an extent it is bigger than you. And that would be another thing that I would take comfort in as a Leo, because Leo is a sign that rules the self and rules the self-perception, and of course one of the shadow traits of Leo is narcissism. So it is important to offset this time understanding that there are some things that are bigger than us, there are some things that are going to happen regardless of what we do. But yes, the things that we can control, or the things that our actions can influence, are very important to consider right now. But it's important to understand that type of hierarchy as well. I also see some people, especially people with a lot of Scorpio in their chart, a lot of Cancer in their charts, kind of taking on limiting beliefs as well. So I need to move more slowly, or I need to protect myself even more. And actually, I would say that is not good right now either. It's also important to see where burnout is, Leos. The Ace of Wands coming up, the Six of Swords, the Eight of Pentacles. I'm happy that you don't have any 9 or 10 of Wands coming up, and instead you have a 7 of Pentacles, 4 of Swords moment. That is special. And it does say that many Leos are understanding that previous overdone, oversaturated outputs can't continue, and it's you're reflecting here. There is the energy of reflection for you in the month of February. And for a lot of the signs, it's actually not this way. It's just action. So on one hand, that might mean that Leos are kind of lagging, and it's you're getting into this all planets direct energy, and you're oh my gosh, I still don't know what the heck to do with myself. And if that's the case, that's fine. This entire month of February is fine for reflection and strategy. Mars is still moving a little bit slowly, at least in the end of January and beginning of February. So, however, by March and April, you need to think about some real material changes in your life, and use this time to heal and get healthy enough to work with that in a healthy way. Let's talk about your week-to-week, Leos. Okay, in the first week of February, you have the 7 of Pentacles rooted down by the Ace of Wands. Okay, so you are reflecting on your inspirations and desires, and there's going to be some weeding out of the garden to do there. Okay, are there monotonous, menial, unnecessary things that are taking up space in your life that prevents your motivation and inspiration from coming through? The first week of February will reveal that, if you have that happening in your life. And I know that it can get kind of boring for some people, or it can even get arduous to really show themselves, what all am I growing in my life? What all am I contributing to? What all am I giving my energy to? And it can also freak some people out, because it's so easy, if you're on either the too little or too much side of what all you're growing in your life, it gets really freaky for a lot of people. So we're kind of wanting to create a more sacred middle zone, kind of like a Goldilocks zone of sorts when it comes to material stuff right now. So try to really get out of these extreme notions, I've got to have all that money, or I want to give it all away. The all or nothing mentalities are quite dangerous right now. Ace of Wands will make you want to start something new, though. It will make you want to take on some type of new project, and I think that you do need to clear out some space so that that is possible, if that's what you're wanting. In the second week, you have the King of Swords reversed, rooted down by the Four of Swords. So, yeah, you are needing to not think too hard, but rather just kind of like open the mind to new ideas or open the mind to solutions. It's kind of like one of those situations where, if you're a songwriter or an author, sometimes you understand that sitting in that Word document or sitting with the pen and paper and thinking about what to say next doesn't always yield the best results. Sometimes you just need to do other things and let that come to you in a more open mind state. And I do feel that that's what's coming up for you right now. Week number 3, the Eight of Pentacles rooted down by the Six of Swords. So, yes, I feel that very strongly. Some of you are moving in the third week of February. Some of you are really working on that next chapter or working hard to think about the next transition in your life, which is very supported. How can it be sturdier and more solid than previous transitions that you've had? How can your effort or your planning lead this next transition to be smoother and more optimized than previous ones? That's a good way to be thinking in the third week. Also, who is relying on you being a certain place? Why are people around you not able of tending to themselves? I feel that people are holding on to you for something, or people are like, and this always happens to Leos, right? It's like the sign of the king or the sign of the noble. Okay, so it tends to have like an entourage, or it tends to have a lot of people like kind of orbiting. So that can sometimes be a good thing, that can sometimes be a bad thing. So who's orbiting around you? Who's like relying on your energy? Who wants you to pay their bills? Who wants you to, steer their boat? Again, it's not always a bad thing, but I do kind of feel there's like a freeloading energy around you. And I definitely think, Leos, this is the most important thing of your reading this month. I think there are people around you who totally require you to be in their space, or require you to be around them, or making their decisions, or paying their bills, or doing their business in order to have the life that they currently have. So your presence, or this can kind of be an ego thing, but I'm not meaning it to be, but your presence or your control, your giving of yourself to other people does have almost a symbolic life or death impact on some people around you right now. And that does mean that some people could get heavy-handed with you. They could be like, you need to do what's best for me, not what's best for you. Or you have, I think, a lot of people around you who are unwilling to face their own problems, and maybe like, and this is kind of a vampiric type of relationship, like by having you with them, or by having your energy around them, they feel safe in a detrimental environment. That could also be happening to you as well. By having certain things or certain presences or certain people around you, are you feeling safe in a detrimental environment? This is one of my favorite prayers actually coming through 2022 is like, God, please do not let me feel comfortable with something that is detrimental or wrong for me. And we actually have a huge problem, like a huge demographic globally right now that is in that kind of confused place where they're trying to find things or people, and it's like human nature as well. Things that numb out that holy sacred feeling of something being off, okay? A lot of us get so scared of that, and we're like, how do I handle that? And a lot of people think that it's by forming a relationship, it's by, playing video games, or by money, or whatever it is. And all of those things are like false implements and basically distract from the overall transformation that was needing to be made. So that is kind of one of the really incredible places that I'm getting to on my spiritual journey, is not feeling the need to interfere with that feeling of things being off. And that's just really big for you and your axis. And I'm going to have to mention this, I think, in the comprehensive astrology video, because this is definitely one of the biggest spiritual things coming up in this general period of time, is like the harm that we do by numbing out or by pushing so hard to achieve some amount of comfort in a situation that's not meant to be comfortable. So food for thought for you all in the third week as you make a very sacred transition there. And it's like a physical material change or move. Try to see it if your move is being like engineered by others to be that for them, like by moving or by changing or by doing what's good for them, you're giving them like a comfort in a situation they're not meant to be comfortable in. Okay, just keep an eye out on that. So that happens a lot when people move in too fast together. That's actually one of the main mundane interpretations of the Six of Swords, is like moving in with someone too fast. So like starting a new relationship and like a month into the relationship, like moving in with the person. That's one of the main actual like mundane expressions of Six of Swords. And that usually happens because people are very uncomfortable and they're trying to satiate that discomfort without solving the actual problem, which is when we get major, major universal intervention. And that is a great recipe for trauma when we do that type of thing alchemically, when we dissociate or try to falsely generate comfort into our lives when God or the universe is trying to make us uncomfortable for a reason. It's one of the best ways to move into trauma, okay? Because what happens is all of that discomfort still exists, but it's like nullified by a false type of spiritual implement. So it coalesces and it builds and it gets exponentially concentrated, and then we're getting into like trauma energy. So the key, Leo, and this has been a great little dialogue about this, the key is to really figure out your own, you know what, okay? To really figure it out and solve the problem here instead of like piling things on that distract from the problem. And as I feel for many of you, this is like someone else in your life who is in this place where they're like trying to augment a false sense of comfort in order to escape something. It's almost harder if it's someone else in your life, because at least when it's yourself, you have the ultimate control of how you work with the comfort or discomfort. But when it's someone else, you don't have that control. And if someone else chooses to do that, we can't really force them otherwise. All we can do, and this is kind of difficult, but is not be a false force of comfort in their lives. And then, of course, there's a difference between being that and being like a soothing presence or being a helpful, healing presence in someone's life. You can still be that, but it is important to know when we are being used as an escapist construct in someone else's life. You know, so for example, the dating culture is a great example of this. Hookup culture, stuff like that, is a great example of being a false construct of escapism as opposed to like a healing or kind presence in someone else's life. So there is a lot of karma there. Any form of escapism, addiction, denial, that is coming up to be faced. And by the fourth week, with the King of Wands rooted down by the Queen of Swords reversed, you are like golden. You're really diversifying your contacts and your networks, but you have a little bit of a disconnect that's kind of like the passion project versus the logical path forward. I think that you guys need to follow your passions, especially if you've been spending a lot of time in logic and if you've really used the first 3 weeks of February to figure some stuff out. Wisdom goes a long way, but passion does as well. So it's wisdom, it's passion, it's logic. These are the main things coming up for you by the end of the month. And ultimately, Leo, you have a different context now especially by the time Pluto hits your axis in March at 0 degrees of Aquarius, you have a different story that you're telling. And so does Aquarius, and to a lesser degree, Scorpio and Taurus. But yeah, all the fixed signs have a different narrative. So the worst thing we can do is force an old narrative or force some type of false comfort, and please do not do that to yourself, because you can actually control what you do to yourself. And be careful of letting someone else kind of animate you to do that for them. Okay, so that's like the main thing this month. Anyway, let's talk more about some mundane things in your extended reading, Leos. I do the extended readings on Patreon. I also do weekly tea chats, which are premium forecasts, which are such a great value. You get all of the extended readings, all of the other general readings with no ads. I think it's a really, really great service. Come check out the Patreon page. I'll link it below and in the center of your screen. And yes, I will go and get some more cards and talk about some more like material level mundane stuff for you all on Patreon. So have a great month, Leos. Beautiful reading. Bye.